All the way at a number 10 spot, we have the case of Travis Walton. In 1975, Travis Walton was working as a logger in Arizona when he claimed to have been abducted by a UFO. He was with a group of other loggers at the time, and they all witnessed a UFO before it whisked Walton away. After being missing for 5 days, Walton reappeared with a strange story of having been taken aboard the UFO and subjected to a series of medical examinations by these aliens. He claimed he was taken to a somewhat operation room with 3 short bald-headed figures, where he started to panic and fight them off. And this is when a human-looking figure took him to another room, and this is when he passed out and reappeared on a highway completely nude. The incident gained widespread attention and was even investigated by the US Air Force. Many people were skeptical of Walton's story, and some even suggested that he may have fabricated the whole thing. However, the other loggers who were with Walton at the time of the incident all swore that they saw the UFO and that they believed that Walton was telling the truth. The story was later made into a book and film named Fire in the Sky in 1993. So go check it out. And to this day, people are still divided on the truth of Walton's story, and this incident remains one of the most well-known UFO abduction cases in history. At a number 9 spot, we have the Barney and Betty Hill abduction. The Barney and Betty Hill abduction is a well-known case of an alleged extraterrestrial abduction in the United States. The incident took place in September 1961 as Barney and Betty Hill were driving back to Portsmouth, New Hampshire from a vacation. Betty first spotted a bright point of light in the sky that appeared to be moving erratically and growing bigger and brighter. Barney stopped the car for a closer look, and both of them observed an odd-shaped craft with multicolored lights that appeared to be rotating. The Hills claimed that the craft descended rapidly towards their vehicle, and Barney even claimed to have seen humanoid figures peering out the windows. The Hills reported that the craft approached to within 50 to 80 feet overhead, and Barney ran back to the car in a near hysterical state, claiming that the figures were going to capture them. The couple reported experiencing missing time and later underwent hypnosis to try to recover any lost memories. The incident became widely publicized and was the subject of a best-selling book and a television film. The Hills story has been the subject of much debate and speculation over the years. However, their case will forever remain one of the most well-known UFO abduction cases in the United States. At number 8 spot, we have Antonio Villas-Boas. Antonio Villas-Boas was a Brazilian farmer who claimed to have been abducted by extraterrestrials in 1957. On October 16, 1957, he was working in his fields when he saw a red star in the sky that approached and became a circular or egg-shaped aerial craft with a rotating cupola. According to his story, he was seized by small, gray-clad humanoids, taken inside the aircraft, and then subjected to a series of procedures including blood sampling, exposure to a gas that made him violently ill, and sexual intercourse with a female humanoid. Boas claimed that he was then given a tour of the ship and watched it take off before returning home to discover that 4 hours had passed. He claimed to have suffered from nausea, weakness, headaches, and skin lesions following the alleged event. Boas later became a lawyer and stuck to the story of his abduction for his entire life. Some people consider his story to be a hoax, although he reportedly maintained his account until his death in 1991. At a number 7 spot, we have the Taylor incident. The Taylor incident, also known as the Livingston incident or the Detchmont Woods encounter, is an alleged extraterrestrial sighting that occurred in Scotland in 1979. Forester Robert Taylor claimed to have encountered a flying dome, which is this large circular sphere with small propellers in the Detchmont Law Forest. He reported that smaller spheres resembling sea mines had seized him and were trying to drag him in the direction of the large object before he just lost consciousness. When he awoke, the objects were gone, and he walked home with torn clothing and grazes on his chin and thighs. The police reported the incident as a criminal assault, and doctors treated Taylor's injuries. Ufologists have taken an interest in the story, and Taylor has become well known among UFO enthusiasts as the only person to have reported a UFO sighting that was a subject to a criminal investigation. Ufologist Malcolm Robinson believes the incident could be a genuine case of a UFO encounter, while UFO skeptic Stuart Campbell believes the story could have been a simple explanation and pointed to PVC pipes stored in the clearing that could have caused the ground markings. At a number 6 spot, we have the Pascagoula abduction. The Pascagoula abduction was a highly publicized event that took place in October 1973. Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker were fishing near Pascagoula, Mississippi when they claimed to have been abducted by aliens. They reported seeing 2 flashing blue lights and an oval-shaped object that was approximately 30 to 40 feet in diameter and 8 to 10 feet in height. The 2 men reported being paralyzed while these 3 creatures with slit mouths and crab-like pincers performed an examination contamination on them. After the event, Hickson went on to give interviews and lectures and even appeared on television shows like To Tell the Truth. Parker became involved in the UFO community and even started a company focused on producing TV stories about UFO sightings. However, many skeptics have cast doubt on the validity of the Pascagoula abduction. Philip J. Klass, an aviation journalist and UFO skeptic, found inconsistencies in Hickson's story and concluded that it was all a big hoax. Joe Nickell also expressed skepticism, suggesting that Hickson may have fantasized about the encounter while in a hypnagogic state, which is basically hallucinations that happen while you're sleeping. Parker's corroboration of the tale was seen as a result of suggestibility, as he initially told the police that he had passed out during the incident. No one will really know the truth of this abduction, but it still remains a pioneer in extraterrestrial interactions. In the hump of our list, we have the disappearance of Frederick Valentich. Frederick Valentich was a young Australian pilot who disappeared during a training flight in 1978, and his story has been shrouded in mystery and speculation ever since. On the evening of October 21st, Valentich radioed Melbourne Air Traffic Control to report that he was being followed by an aircraft 1,000 feet above him and that his engine was running roughly. He went on to describe the aircraft as not being like anything he had ever seen before, with a shiny metal surface and a green light. His transmission was then interrupted by metallic scraping noises before all contact was lost. A search was then conducted, but no trace of Valentich or his aircraft was ever found. Some have proposed that he staged his own disappearance, while others believe he became disoriented and just crashed into the water, mistaking his own lights for those of another aircraft. The investigation by the Australian Department of Transport was unable to determine the cause of his disappearance, but it was presumed fatal. Despite extensive searches and investigations, the fate of Frederick Valentich still remains a mystery, and it really brings in the question of what was really following him in the sky that day. Number 4, a UFO encounter or just sleep paralysis. A now deleted Reddit user was lying in their bed with their girlfriend when they woke up from an intense dream, and as he was about to tell his girlfriend, he realized that he couldn't move a muscle. All of a sudden, they heard someone yell out, "Watch out, he's awake," and he began to feel pressure on his chest, all while being tied down to a dentist-like chair. The Reddit user then heard a metal door close loudly and then just complete silence, which seemed to last an eternity. They could hear their girlfriend breathing in her sleep next to them, but were unable to move or even wake her up. This is when the user came up with the idea that they had been abducted by aliens. After a couple of minutes, it had seemed like they were transported back to their bed. After they regained control of their body, the user woke up with their girlfriend and went downstairs, where they had a glass of juice and smoked a cigarette in the garden due to the stress. They took their tablet and researched what they had experienced, and it was either sleep paralysis or an alien abduction. They then left off with a message saying that anyone who have claimed to have been abducted by aliens might have actually just experienced sleep paralysis, and maybe there's some truth to that. Number 3, the UFO encounter of Marius de Wilde. The French commune of Quarobo made headlines in September 10, 1954, when a local railway worker named Marius de Wilde claimed to have been visited by extraterrestrials. According to reports, de Wilde claimed that a cigar-shaped UFO landed near his garden and 2 small creatures in spacesuits resembling dive costumes emerged. The UFO shot a beam of light that paralyzed de Wilde, and by the time he recovered, the aliens were already getting ready to leave. Despite an investigation by the authorities that found unusual marks on the railway tracks, there was no concrete evidence of an alien encounter. The story of Marius de Wilde's experience with extraterrestrials quickly spread and reached the wine-producing village Châteauneuf-du-Pape, located hundreds of miles from Quarobo. The local mayor and town council were keen to protect their citizens and vineyards from potential alien invaders, and as a result, passed a municipal decree that banned all UFOs from landing, taking off, or flying over the community, which is just very strange. This strange and unique occurrence has become one of France's most fascinating UFO stories. Number 2, The Visitors. Louis Whitley Strieber is an American writer known for his horror novels and non-fiction books exploring paranormal concepts. Strieber claims to have been abducted by non-human entities, which he referred to as visitors, and he even wrote about his experiences in Communion, a non-fiction book that became his bestseller and reached the #1 position on the New York Times bestseller list. Strieber's subsequent books also detail his experiences with the visitors, including Transformation, Breakthrough the Next Step, and Solving the Communion Enigma, What is to Come. In his writing, Strieber has explored the idea of parallel universes and time travel, and he believes that the human species is being led to a higher level of existence. He has expressed frustration that his experiences have been taken as alien contact, and has reported anomalous childhood experiences and possible early interference by intelligence or military agencies. Despite extensive testing, Strieber's brain was found to be functioning normally. Number 1. Elliot Bud Hopkins. Elliot Bud Hopkins was an American artist, author, and ufologist who is known for his research and writing on the subject of alien abductions. He was a prominent figure in the study of the phenomenon and is often referred to as the father of the abduction movement. Hopkins was inclined to believe that alien abductions were a form of genetic experimentation and likened them to assault. He described victims' experiences as severe and nightmarish and believed that both men and women could be abducted by aliens. Women in particular, according to Hopkins, seem to be part of a highly technological colonization scheme where they've been taken to spaceships, impregnated, and then had their hybrid fetuses removed. Hopkins believes that once a victim, abductees were powerless and susceptible to additional kidnapping. Critics of his work, however, argue that the phenomenon can be explained by normal hallucinatory powers of the brain, such as sleep paralysis. Hopkins rejected this idea and believed that sleep paralysis was an inadequate explanation for those who experience abductions outside of the bedroom. At a number 10 spot, we have the campgrounds. Camping is just one of those things that keeps us connected to nature, except sometimes that connection can be a little too strong. YouTuber MBG Films went out on a camping trip with some friends and began to record their nighttime activities until he discovered something a lot more terrifying.
Well, you've been sharpening it for like 2 hours. You hear something?
Whatever it is in the video, you can all tell that it is walking on all fours and is longer than any human that we know of. As well, the creature appears to be moving very fast, and it only appears for a few frames and then completely vanishes off of it. What do you guys think this is? A lot of people have claimed what we see here is either a deer or a kangaroo, but in my opinion, this looks nothing close to either of those animals. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below. At our number 9 spot, we have Not a Mountain Lion. If you live in a rural town surrounded by only mountains and forests, camping can be a pretty nice hobby. For one Reddit user who is one of these types of people, he told a story about a time when he and his friend broke off from their group to camp by a better spot. But it ended up being one of their most traumatic nights they could recall. They only brought one tent for the group, so they built a lean-to against a large boulder in a clearing. As the night went by, one of the two men had an eerie feeling that something was watching them as they heard bushes moving and sticks cracking all around them. At first, they just assumed it was a mountain lion, and for the majority of us, this would have been pretty terrifying. But since this guy was a frequent camper, he already knew how to deal with them, so for him, it wasn't that big of a deal. And to ease their nerves further, they added more logs to the fire. But as they were throwing more logs, the silhouette of a man was seen standing at the edge of a clearing about 80 yards away from them. They were frozen and just couldn't take their eyes off him while he seemingly stared back at them. The man eventually walked off in the opposite direction after a minute or two. While the former Redditor doubts the man had any ill intentions, they held onto their friend's firearm the whole night. They would recall the man disappearing into the darkness of the night, with the Reddit user and his friends staying on constant watch for the remainder of the night. But all in all, this situation just shows how encountering a stranger out camping is much more terrifying than any sort of wildlife. At a number 8 spot, we have the Devil's Tramping Ground. Located in the dense forest of the Harper Crossroad area in Bear Creek, North Carolina, lies a camping ground known as the Devil's Tramping Ground. And I know, the name alone should tell you all about this place. Because in local lore, they suggest this is the location where the devil, quote, tramps, and this has supposedly caused a small circle in the area to become lifeless and never have the ability to grow anything. It seems that locals have even tried to revive the area by planting various seeds and even using a bunch of fertilizers, but nothing seems to be able to fully grow within this circle of land. Some historians believe that this was also an ancient meeting place for the local Native American tribes around the area. They would come here to do ceremonial dances and other festivals, and some say there was some sacrifices done here as well. In the 1930s, newspapers were hit with news that a beast was guarding the grounds. The story read, quote, "Coon and possum hunters and their dogs have been on more than one occasion chased from the vicinity of the Devil's Tramping Ground by a ferocious beast said to resemble a black bear." At our number 7 spot, we have the Ghost of Saline River. The legend of Takaluma, or the Ghost of Saline River, is a frightening tale that has been passed down for generations in Kansas. According to the legend, Takaluma was an old Native American who was condemned to wander the banks of the Saline River after his death. His ghost is said to roam the river at night, searching for his father's skull, who was the chief and was murdered by early settlers. So fast forward, and one night, a cowboy camping on the riverbank had a terrifying encounter with the ghost of Takaluma. The cowboy heard a loud yell and saw the ghost standing in front of him, a powerful looking Indian with piercing eyes and a mocking laugh. Despite trying to defend himself with his revolver, the cowboy's bullets seemed to have no effect on the spirit. Takaluma spoke to the cowboy in English, telling him a story of his people and their journey to the valley where they made their home. Takaluma described a pestilence which decimated the tribe and their wigwams decayed, leaving no trace of their existence. Then he continued on saying that the white man came and disturbed the rest of Takaluma's people with his plow. The ghost asked the cowboy to help right the wrongs that had been done to his people and to find the skull of his father, more importantly. However, some say the cowboy never ended up finding the skull, so Takaluma's spirit is still around the Saline River on cold nights asking for people to find his father's skull. Number 6. The woman crawling and whispering. During their family camping trips to a state park, a Reddit user by the name of KMIA official and their friend had a nightly ritual of exploring the nearby woods and occasionally camping some nights. However, one night they ventured further than usual with flashlights turned off and heard soft whispering behind them. Upon turning their lights on, they didn't see anything, but the whispering continued. As they decided to head back, they saw a lady crawling on the ground whispering random words, covered in dirt and just wearing these really dark clothing. When she realized they saw her, she stood up and claimed to be lost and looking for her campsite. They escorted her back to the campground and discovered that she was just really heavily intoxicated and had just gone lost trying to find a bathroom. In the hump of our list, we have the child demon. As a summer camp counselor in Southern California, Reddit user He Flying Cheese was no stranger to the various animals that roam the woods, from harmless deer and foxes to more dangerous predators like coyotes and mountain lions. One night after putting the kids to bed, the Reddit user was approached by their friend Sadie, who was visibly shaken with a group of teenage girls dressed in black. They claimed to have heard a ghostly voice while on a night hike, prompting the counselor to investigate immediately. As they walk towards the sound, they hear a faint help from a small child. The noise becomes increasingly distorted and then eventually demonic. It almost seems like it's screeching out its best impression of a child's voice. Fearing for their safety, the counselor quickly returned to the safety of the main camp, where they decide not to investigate and just stay safe. Number 4. Boy Scout Lane. This isolated rural street in Linwood, Portage County is said to be one of America's most haunted roads. It's only less than a mile long, but it's notorious for the things that happen on this road. The road gets its name Boy Scout Lane because this is the location where a group of Boy Scouts were murdered on their camping trip during the late 1950s. The case never ended up getting solved, but many people had their own theories. Some believe the murderer was their scoutmaster, while others believed it was the bus driver who drove them to the woods. Regardless of what story is true, what is said is that these Boy Scouts haunt the forest around this stretch of road, and some who drive on this road see 4 distinct lights in the distance which are supposed to resemble the 4 Boy Scouts looking to get through the forest. But if you decide to be brave enough and camp out there, you will most likely hear the sounds of footsteps and breaking branches coming in all sorts of directions in the middle of the night. And if you don't like camping and you sleep in a car, you may wake up with childlike handprints on your vehicle. So if you can, just try to avoid the street at all costs. Number 3. Aliens. Reddit user Dashboard for Fire saw an alien come out of the woods behind their house. They were only 10 years old at the time at the event, playing in the room alone. It was only about 11 p.m. and they had the sliding glass door in the room open with the blinds pulled back. Out of nowhere, the automatic light behind their house just turned on. They looked out of the sliding glass door and saw a figure approach the door. At first, they thought it was their neighbor, but as they looked closer, they realized it had to be something else. It stopped at the sliding glass door and stared into the Reddit user's room. They described it as a dark black figure with a rounded head and stood about 6 feet tall. It was very slender and it stared for a few minutes and then suddenly turned and was gone. Number 2. The Allagash Abduction. The Allagash abduction is one of the most famous Men in Black cases in history. In 1976, 4 college students from Maine were out camping near Allagash Waterway when they noticed a strange light in the night sky. Initially believing it to be an airplane, the group soon realized that what they were witnessing was something far more mysterious as the light began to move around erratically before eventually disappearing. A few minutes later, the group heard a loud humming sound coming from above and saw two bright lights in the sky, and this time they knew it wasn't an airplane. The next thing they remembered was waking up hours later with no recollection of what had happened during those hours. The four men reported that their abductors had gray skin with large eyes and bald heads and commuted telepathically with them during their experience. They were taken aboard a UFO where various medical tests were performed on them before being released back to their campsite. Afterwards, the men encountered two men in black who warned them not to tell anyone about their experience or else they face serious consequences. At number 1 spot, we have the Wendigo. This was also actually a legend I heard growing up, and they used to tell this around campfires, and it was absolutely terrifying, like keep you at night terrifying. A Wendigo is said to be a very rare demon. They are described as strong monsters that have a very powerful desire to eat and kill their victims, which happen to be us, humans. The legend states that a Wendigo can possess you and turn you into one itself if the person is greedy enough or weak enough and wander in the woods alone at night. And more so when the victims are out camping. There are multiple myths talking about what Wendigos look like, but majority of them describe them to look like an animal, but very tall with a skull as a head, long legs, and their whole body covered in hair and drenched in blood. They are said to be very fast with strength like no other, super hearing, amazing sense of smell, and said to walk on water. Like Jesus? So be safe camping this summer, everyone.
Number 10, when the Saints come marching in. The Kiesler and his girlfriend were on a road trip through California when they found a relatively empty campsite. They set up camp, made dinner, and went to bed. In the middle of the night, they were awoken by someone whistling outside their tent to the tune of When the Saints Come Marching In. They laid in utter silence, hoping the singing person would go away. But then the whistling turned to chanting. When you sleep here, you disrespect me, and when you disrespect me, you disrespect the US Marines. The Reddit user knew they needed to get out. They quietly climbed from their tent into their truck and drove to a motel in the neighboring town. The next morning, they drove back to the campsite to retrieve their belongings they had left behind. As they were leaving, they paused at a site adjacent to where they had slept, where a family had been staying. The family told the Kiesler that the singing had continued for another 2 to 3 hours after they left, and it was one of the creepiest things they'd ever experienced. Number 9, the Florida Keys. Jackman was camping in the Florida Keys near a quarry and an old dump site. One day, someone showed up at their camp and said that they needed to move further from the dump site. He was planning on cleaning up the junk and burning some of the refuse in the area. The user moved, and that night the men started burning. Both parties went about their business. That night, the peaceful camping trip took a turn. They woke to the sound of scratching outside their tent. When they opened their eyes, they found their tent was covered in hundreds of rats. They shook off as many as they could before climbing from the tent. The rats had gone, but the writer was too freaked to go back to sleep. Instead, they started a fire and stayed up for the rest of the night. The next night, the Reddit writer fell asleep hesitantly, but thought it would be okay because the men had finished their burning. Yet again, they woke on the second night to their tent covered in rats. They used the same strategy, shaking the tent until the little critters fell off, then starting a fire. But after this, they'd had enough. They packed up their things and headed back for the highway. As they were walking along the road, they came upon the body of a giant alligator. Suffice it to say, they had their fill of camping in Florida. Number 8, crime scene. Every summer when Camo Panda went to visit their dad, the two would take trips into the mountains. On one trip, however, their experience left them incredibly uneasy. They were hiking down a steep slope when they saw an old rifle sticking from a tree. It looked like the tree had grown around the barrel many years before. They went to get a closer look and found a small cave. Inside, the two found a handful of aged personal belongings that made it seem as though the cave had once been inhabited. There were 3 cans of unopened food, a rusted cast iron pot, an old saddle and a bridle set, and a deteriorated wool blanket. They unrolled the blanket, and here's where things got really freaky. Inside, they found a shirt with holes and blood stains crumpled up. The writer's father estimated the gun they found in the tree to have been from the 1870s, meaning whoever had been shot, and most likely forcefully removed from life, in those woods likely passed away around that same time. Number 7. Orbs. TX_ and their family were camping on a lake in central Texas. On the first night, they were playing Pictionary by the campfire when they saw a light fly over by the lake. For a moment, they didn't think much of it, and instead continued the game. Then, another went by at the same speed, following the exact same trajectory as the first. They were reddish yellow orbs with no sound coming from them. After about 15 of the orbs went by, a faster, smaller, white one came in behind the rest. Then, they were all gone. Not much was said about the event for the rest of the trip, but when they returned home, their mother looked up what the lights could have been. She discovered that people in a town a few miles from where they had been camping also reported seeing the lights. No one had an explanation for what they were. Number 6. The Watcher. The user Border Trilogy is no stranger when it comes to camping, but when he and his wife wandered off the trail while backpacking in Maine, they had a rather strange encounter. They had prepared to be on the trail for 10 days, and so far hadn't seen another person since first hitting the trail. The couple had hoped not to see anyone else on their trip, so this was perfect. Normally they just sleep under the stars. One night, because it was drizzling, they set up their little tent and climbed inside for the night. Around sunrise the next morning, he crawled from their tent to see a man standing about 30 feet from them, staring. The Reddit user greeted them, but without saying a word, the man turned and disappeared into the woods. The couple were out there for another few days and kept waiting to run into the man again, but never did. That is actually freaky. I just felt like my back shiver. Number 5. The Old Man. One macabre cat went camping at a summer program when he was just 16. When he went to bed one night, the group stayed awake, chatting in their tent, when they suddenly started to hear heavy breathing nearby. He described the noise sounding like someone had just been sprinting and stopped right outside their tent. Trying to stay calm, he ignores it and keeps chatting. Then they heard, "Please, help me." Everyone in the tent went silent. They heard the questions again. At this point, they were all freaked out. Then one of the braver kids turned on a flashlight and opened the inner flap to see out. They saw a pair of bare, scabbed, and pale legs standing there. It seemed as though the guy had been walking nude through the woods for a while. The man asked for help again, and the boy who opened the tent told the man to keep walking down the trail and he should find a ranger soon. The man responded, No rangers, they keep me here." One of the camp chaperones came out and asked the man a series of questions. The old man didn't answer. Instead, he started sobbing and ran into the woods. Number 4. The Mountain Lion. Pillow Pants 101 was in Canada climbing with a friend, and they were on their way back to their car with their dog, walking around between them on their leash. Suddenly, it stumbled into his friend, causing him to stumble. The writer turned around and saw a full-grown mountain lion standing about 2 feet behind them. It had just tried to pull the dog off its leash and was now sitting back on its haunches, hissing. The Reddit user froze, but their friend turned around and started running. They yelled for their friend to stop. Running would make the mountain lion want to chase them. Their friend stopped, then turned and ran directly at the cat, screaming and waving his arms. The cat jumped into the woods away from sight. The two started walking faster down the trail, but when they turned around, the mountain lion was right behind them and even closer this time than before. The friends started throwing rocks. One of the rocks landed and rolled past the lion. The animal chased it down the trail until it disappeared. During the last mile or so back to the camp, the two kept checking over their shoulder, but the mountain lion never returned. After they were off the trail, they heard about a couple hikers and their dog who had apparently encountered the same mountain lion. This time the lion had been successful in getting the dog off the leash. Eventually, the Canadian Mounties hunted it down and ended it. Number 3. Disappearing Ocean. What's Really Going On and their husband were camping in the Everglades in Florida. On the first night, they had the entire island to themselves. They set up camp on the beach, and the view of the wide open Gulf of Mexico was spectacular. The two settled into their tent and fell asleep to the sound of gentle waves hitting the beach. But around 2 in the morning, the Reddit writer woke up and heard nothing. They went out and shone their flashlight out to where the water should have been, but it wasn't there. The beach where the couple had just been fishing a few hours before extended beyond the reach of their flashlight beam. They ventured out but still saw no ocean. They went back into the tent and remembered that right before a tsunami hits, the water recedes. Convinced there was a tsunami approaching, they were terrified. Eventually the sound of the water returned, and the writer couldn't describe the intense relief they felt. Number 2, aliens. Dashboard for Fire saw an alien come out of the woods behind their house. They were 10 years old playing in their room alone, and it was about 11 p.m. They had the sliding glass door in their room open with the blinds pulled back. Out of nowhere, the automatic light behind their house turned on. They looked out the sliding glass door and saw a figure approach the door. At first they thought it was their neighbor, but as they looked closer, they realized it had to be something else. It stopped at the sliding glass door and stared into the writer's room. Their description says it was dark black with a rounded head and stood at about 6 feet tall. It had 2 arms, 2 legs, and was incredibly thin. After it stared for a few minutes, it suddenly turned and was gone. They yelled for their mom, who, when told the story, didn't believe a word of it. Now at age 23, this Reddit user still gets chills when they think about what they saw that night. And I would too. That sounds terrifying. Number 1, knocking. Snaggy from JOT and their girlfriend were sitting in their car that was parked at a rest area having something to eat after visiting the renowned Mount St. Helens. It was raining, so the windows were fogged, and thanks to the approaching nightfall, it was getting dark. The couple was minding their own business when suddenly there was a series of 3 knocks on the driver's side window. They were both startled. There was no one else in the parking lot. Even more terrifyingly, the driver's side of the car was overlooking an embankment. They rolled down their window and looked out, but saw no one. This was enough to thoroughly creep them out, and they left immediately. Later, they read a park flyer that a man had passed away there during the eruption. Ever since, they've been wondering if the knocks on the car door were that man's ghost, desperately trying to be saved.
Coming in at our number 10 spot, we have Chopperton High School. The Chopperton High School in Maryland has a tragic history that still haunts the building to this day. In the summer of 1983, a teacher named Mrs. Heater was working alone in the school when she was brutally attacked and killed by a maintenance worker named Lester Broom. Broom then dragged her body to the nearest bathroom on the 2nd floor before being caught and convicted of the crime. Since then, many students and faculty members claim to have seen the ghost of Mrs. Heater haunting the hallways and specifically the bathroom where she was found dead, while some accounts only involve the sound of high heels clicking through the halls or in the bathroom when no one is around. Even those who are unaware of the history of the school often report feeling a general sense of unease when walking through this building. With such a tragic past, it's no wonder that the ghost of Mrs. Heater still roams the halls of Chopperton High School, reminding everyone of the terrible event that occurred to her there. At a number 9 spot, we have the Toowoomba Secondary School. The Toowoomba Secondary School in Australia has a haunted history dating back to its use of a military headquarters during wartime. Several ghost stories have emerged over the years, including the urban legend of a man on fire, a priest still roaming the chapel, and a woman appearing in the administration building. In 2015, a local ghost hunting group published a historic class photo taken at the school that showed a ghostly figure among a group of boys. The blurry figure in the photo appears to be wearing the same uniform as the rest of the students and is considered proof of ghostly activity. The photo is now hanging on a wall inside of the school, adding to its already spooky atmosphere. Visitors to the school report feeling a sense of unease, even if they're not aware of any of the ghost stories, which only adds more to this school's eerie reputation. At a number 8 spot, we have the Jep High School for Boys. The Jep High School for Boys in Kensington, Johannesburg has a very dark history dating back to the early days. The school was built to educate the children of minors and has since become an esteemed institution with a beautiful main building and a war memorial declared national monuments in 1986. However, Jep Boys Secondary School also has a very spooky reputation attached to it, thanks to the ghost of a woman who is said to haunt the corridors of the on-site hostel. According to local legends, the woman committed suicide after the death of her husband during World War I. Some versions of the story suggest that she was actually the mother of a Jep Boys student who witnessed her son's accidental death on the sports field after being impaled by a javelin. In either case, the woman allegedly took her own life by jumping from a nearby hill and was somehow decapitated. Now her ghost is sent to roam the corridors of the school hostel, crying for her son and holding her head in her hands. The spooky tales of the ghost hauntings have scared many of the boys who stayed in the hostel during school terms. Some have reported seeing the ghost walking around the corridors or even hearing her cries echoing through the halls every single night. At a number 7 spot, we have the Rizal High School in the Philippines. The Philippines has a reputation for being a hotspot for ghosts. Trust me, I know that. And in 2015, A high school there was at the center of a viral ghost story. Two best friends took a selfie in a school bathroom and were shocked to see a spooky figure crouching next to a trash can in the background when they reviewed the photo. The figure appeared to be a girl with long black hair, wearing black clothes and staring directly at the camera. The photo quickly went viral, with social media users comparing the ghost Samara from the horror film The Ring. Despite accusations of a fake photo, the students insisted that they didn't edit the photo and that the ghost was actually real. This incident led to other students reporting their own ghostly sightings on the school's premises, and the administration even considered blessing the building to get rid of all the supernatural entities within it. This story just highlights the power of social media just to spread these stories like wildfire. Number 6, the Turkana Girls College in New Zealand. In 2014, two students at the Turkana College in New Zealand fled the school after being allegedly threatened by a ghostly figure dressed in a black cape and a hat. The school administration initially accused the girls of making up the story, which caused the parents to become involved and become very angry over the handling of the matter. The parents accused the school of being in denial about the haunting and reacted negatively when a reverend suggested that the ghost had been fabricated by the girls. As the controversy continued, a former student named Kelly Sleepin came forward with her own experiences at the hostel dating back 20 years. She shared that she and some classmates had witnessed a cup move across a table on its own before dropping to the floor. A minister was called in to bless the building, but Sleepin later saw an apparition on the main floor. The situation at the school escalated quickly after that, and it was since closed in 2016 due to financial difficulties that caused student enrollment to decline from 152 just down to 47. However, the haunting at the school still remains a topic of discussion to this day, with some people suggesting that the ghostly figure in the black cape and hat was a manifestation of the school's history and culture. Others speculate that the ghost has been a real person who had died in the building and now just haunts the place. Regardless of the cause, the ghostly apparition is a reminder of the school's past and many of the stories that have emerged from its halls. In the Humper list, we have Inside the Library. A school library is a place where students go to study and work on assignments. And on one night, a now deleted Reddit user was working inside of this library when they heard a loud sound of someone flipping through book pages. At first, they tried to ignore it, but it continued for several minutes, becoming increasingly louder. Another student in the room became annoyed and started to search for the source of the sound. The Reddit user joined in on the search, and they both walked down the bookshelves, just trying to locate the source of the sound. Despite their search efforts, they found no one. They hadn't seen anyone come into the room, and they were on the side of the room with the only entrance, so there was no way anyone could have entered without seeing them. When they returned to their seats, the noise started again, and this time it sounded like it was coming from right next to the other student's chair. The other student quickly grabbed his things and left, with the Reddit user following close behind. The user believes that the noise they heard was caused by a weird book ghost, and ever since, they have never returned back to this library at night, because the night after, the same thing occurred, even when other people were present. At a number 4 spot, we have the Hibbing High School. Hibbing High in Minnesota is not your typical average school building. Here, the staircases are marble, the railings are brass, and art walls hold the whole almost medieval design together. The auditorium was modeled after the Capitol Theater, which is a sight in itself. And when Bob Dylan was still Robert Zimmerman and a student at Hibbing High, he performed on the auditorium stage during a talent show. But even with star performers and a stunning design, it's a lone seat inside the auditorium that attracts the most attention from everyone. The story goes that the first stage manager named Bill was employed at the school from 1927 to the late 1960s, when he passed away after a chandelier fell on his head. Rumors soon arose that Bill never really left his favorite seat in the theater, named J47. In the early 90s, Chuck Perry, who at that point has been stage manager since 1979, took a series of photographs of the auditorium after a woman reported feeling a cold chill as she walked around the J47 row. And lo and behold, one of the photographs taken with a Polaroid showed a man sitting in the seat, wearing formal clothes and a top hat. And they said that you could reportedly see right through him. Number 3, the St. Charles East High School. Ghosts are scary enough as it is, but when they're accompanied by a horrifyingly gruesome backstory, they become the fuel of nightmares. St. Charles East High School in Illinois is where it is rumored that the spirit of a former freshman girl haunts the halls, said to have been playing with her flute in the band room when a deranged janitor assaulted her and took her life. She was then cut into pieces and stuffed into various lockers at this school. Since then, band students occasionally run across body parts in their lockers, only to have them disappear right in front of them after they try to show it. Others claim to hear the sounds of a faint flute being played when the room is quiet or when they are alone. Worst of all, many have had their flutes disappear mysteriously, while others notice signs that their instrument has been played while left at the school overnight. Number 2, Las Vegas High School. Las Vegas is all glitz, glamour, money, and well, ghosts. There are quite a few haunted places in Sin City, including Zach Bagan's The Haunted Museum, Westgate, and the Luxor. In 1931, the Las Vegas Academy of the Arts was known as Las Vegas High School. It was the first official high school in the city and the place where the ghost of a former teacher named Mr. Petrie roamed after he passed away in a mysterious fire. Even after the school converted into an arts academy, rumors of the haunting continued. Some people reported seeing a man in a white tux occupying a particular seat in the theater, very similar to what happens at Hibbing High School, which we already talked about. Meanwhile, others felt sharp temperature drops and experienced intense feeling of sadness and despair whenever they entered the building. A teacher named John Morris was skeptical about these stories, but he did admit to having a strange experience of his own. The high school was put on a play called the Spoon River Project, and the stage was set up with a fog machine and a makeshift cemetery. The director of the play approached Morris and told him she saw a small naked Mexican boy standing right next to her during the production. The boy told her that he needed clothes before disappearing. Morris rolled his eyes and tried to convince the director that it was all in her head. The rest of the night went off without a hitch, and after everyone left, only Morris and his 3-year-old daughter were left inside of the theater. Morris was making sure all the doors are locked and shut before calling his daughter so they can go home. She was playing on a mound of grass used in the play and told her father she didn't want to go yet because she was playing with a friend. Morris didn't see anyone, and believing she was talking about an imaginary friend, he indulged her by saying she could play for a few minutes. His daughter then said, "It's that little boy over there. He doesn't have any clothes on." At a number 1 spot, we have the Portland High School. The old high school in Portland, Michigan originally opened in 1881. According to a long-standing urban legend, a 14-year-old student was crushed till she passed away underneath a pile of gym bleachers that collapsed on her in 1918. The janitor, who reportedly failed to fix the bleachers after learning they were faulty, had disappeared all of a sudden. It is believed that the student's father took the life of the janitor out of revenge for his daughter's passing. He then burned the body and set fire to the school. The school was then rebuilt and reopened in 1920. However, the ghost of the girl and the janitor still remained in the school, as with many people reported. Decades later, the school was converted into a housing complex named Old School Manor. It then served as housing between 1992 and 2008, and that during that time, several tenants reported that their household items would just disappear on their own, only to be found stacked on top of one another in a completely different room. Others reported hearing the disconnected school bells ringing, and some have even encountered the ghost of a student who allegedly slapped them on the back. One tenant in particular had a horrendous experience with the janitor's ghost. She alleged that the ghost would terrorize her 2-year-old daughter and demand that she tell her mother that they move out of their apartment. Coming in at a number 10 spot, we have the elevator game. The elevator game is a mysterious and potentially dangerous ritual that is said to bring you to another world. This game has its origins in Japan and is played by entering an elevator in a public building with at least 10 floors. The player must press specific buttons in a specific order without anyone entering or even leaving the elevator in order to reach this other world. In the other world, electronics do not work, the lights are off, and all that can be seen from the windows is a red cross in the distance. To return back to the original world, the players must repeat the sequence of button presses and be very vigilant of their surroundings. The player must be careful not to look at the woman who enters the elevator on the 5th floor, as she is not human. If someone enters or even leaves the elevator during the ritual, the players must start over. And you must be wondering what the specific ritual is, but if you guys actually want to know about that, search it up, because I'm not going to say it for you guys because I don't want you guys doing this. Because for those who have played, it is said that if they faint or lose consciousness during the ritual, they may wake up in their own home. But they must be careful to examine their surroundings, as it may not be the same home they left. It is important to not attempt this ritual too many times as well, as it can lead to an accidental slipping between both worlds. And it's also worth mentioning that if the woman does not enter the elevator or the players do not reach the 10th floor, they should immediately return to the 1st floor and completely end the game. At a number 9 spot, we have the Rokurokubi, the long-necked demon. The legend of the Rokurokubi is a supernatural creature from Japanese mythology that originated during the Edo period, which is 1603 to 1867. The Rokurokubi is a beautiful woman by day, but at night she undergoes a metamorphosis where her neck extends and she begins to hunt. Some versions of this legend says that this creature can be recognized by small white marks on their neck, or even by the way they sleep with their head far from their body. But in reality, when I see photos of this, all I can think is, if they got a long neck, they're probably this creature. According to folklore, however, there are different explanations for the origin of this creature. Some believe they were once Buddhists who broke the religion's principles and were then cursed as punishment, while other people see the transformation as a supernatural expression of the person's desires. There are also legends that suggest they are Oni, which are these Japanese demons seeking revenge or even simply just playing tricks on humans. And it's also worth mentioning that this creature comes in many different forms, with female ones attacking men and male ones attacking women. The Nukekubi is one of the most dangerous forms, however, known for its detached head that just flies around and attacks its prey. At a number 8 spot, we have Hitobashira. Hitobashira, also known as human pillars, is a custom of human sacrifice that was once practiced in Japan. It involved burying a victim alive under or near large-scale buildings such as dams, bridges, and castles. The practice was believed to appease the gods and protect the structure from natural disasters and enemy attacks. The tradition of human sacrifice in Japan dates back to the construction of aristocratic tombs in ancient times. The use of human pillars persisted in various parts of Japan until the 16th century. Legend has it that the Maruoka Castle, one of the oldest surviving castles in Japan, was built with the help of a human pillar named Oshizu. When the stone wall of the castle kept collapsing, a vassal suggested the use of a human sacrifice, Oshizu, who is this one-eyed woman living in poverty who volunteered to even become this human pillar in the first place. But she did this under one condition, and that one condition being that one of her sons was turned into a samurai. She was buried under the central pillar of the castle keep, and the construction was successfully completed. However, her son was not made a samurai, and thus her spirit has caused moat to overflow with spring rain every single year, and some people even report to see her ghost when they enter and visit this castle. As a result, people erected a small tomb to soothe her spirit, and a poem was even handed down about the rain caused by the tears of Oshizu's sorrow. It is speculated that the instability of the walls of the Maruoka Castle was due to the design of the castle in the first place, which is more indicative of earlier fortresses. On the other hand, the Matsu Castle is also rumored to have been constructed on human sacrifice, buried under the castle stone walls. The victim was a beautiful young maiden who was fond of dancing and is referred to as the Maiden of the Matsu. After the castle was built, a law was passed forbidding any girl to dance in the streets of Matsu because the hill Oshiruyama would shudder and the castle would shake from top to bottom. Although this practice has not been continued, it's just crazy to think that this was actually done, and some of the pillars in Japan actually contain real human sacrifice. At our number 7 spot, we have the Kisaragi Station. In 2004, a 2chan user named Hasumi posted on a thread asking for help because she got on the wrong train at Shin Hamatsu Station. This was rather strange because she usually caught the same train after work, and trains in the station only go in one direction. She started getting really anxious because she remembered the stops only being a few minutes between each station, but on this specific train ride, they were just much longer. They even went through a tunnel, but her usual line didn't go through any sort of tunnel. She walked to the front car to ask the conductor for help, but the curtain was closed and no one answered. She then knocked on the door, but that's when the train suddenly stopped at Kisaragi Station. As she left the train, she was filled with huge anxiety and fear, but as she tried to go back, the train door shut on her. As all this was happening, she was messaging people on this discussion board on 4chan about the station, but when they all replied, they had said that no such station existed in Japan. She decided to exit the station and walk back along the tracks, even back through the tunnel she had gone through under earlier. She reported strange sounds like drums in the distance, and even a voice telling her that walking on the tracks is extremely dangerous. As she grew more afraid, she turned back to go around, but she saw an old man with one leg, which then slowly disappeared right after. When she finally got out of the tunnel, a man came up offering help and to drive her to the nearest station. This is when she posted on the thread for the very last time, saying that the man was muttering to himself, then her phone died, and she was never heard from the thread again. At a number 6 spot, we have the 1932 Shirokiya department store. On December 16, 1932, tragedy struck the Shirokiya department store in Japan during their year-end Christmas theme sale. The festive decorations of the season turned into a nightmare as a fire broke out at the toy section just a few minutes before the store was about to open. The fire quickly spread to floors 4 and 8, filling the staircase with smoke and cutting off major escape routes. This left many shoppers and employees stranded on the upper floors, desperate for a way to find safety. Some of those who were trapped made makeshift ropes from clothing or curtains and climbed down to safety. Others were not so lucky. They instead fell to their deaths or even suffocated in the smoke-filled building. In total, 14 people lost their lives and 67 were injured in the Shirokiya department store fire. In the aftermath of the fire, stories and legends began to circulate about the tragedy. One particularly interesting legend relates to the traditional dress of the saleswoman in the store. At the time, it was customary for women who wore traditional kimonos to go without panties. According to this urban legend, some of the saleswomen in kimonos who were trapped on the upper floors chose not to jump the safety nets that had been set up below because they were just ashamed to not be seen below without underwear. While there is no real proof that this legend actually existed, it is said to have led on to an increase in the popularity of Western style panties in Japan, which is both odd and kind of terrifying at the same time. I don't know what to think. In the hub for our list, we have the ghost taxi passengers. After the devastating 3/11 earthquake and tsunami that hit the northeastern Japan coast, sightings of yurei or ghosts have increased drastically in cities like Ishinomaki in Miyagi Prefecture. As these spirits have not been properly put to rest, some may have not even been aware that they are dead and are often searching for a way home. As a result, taxi drivers all over this place have long been subject to ghostly encounters in the form of passengers trying to go home or to a very specific place. This has almost become a norm for taxi drivers around Japan to be asked if they had ever had a ghostly passenger before. Tohoku Gaon University conducted a study called the Awakened Spiritual Earthquake Studies that involve interviews with more than 100 Ishinomaki taxi drivers who had supernatural encounters. Many drivers reported picking up passengers who seemed to be wet or wearing winter coats in the summer, months after the disaster in the cold months of March. Most drivers reported running the meter and having to pay the fee for the vanished passenger. One particular driver reported a chilling story about a man in winter clothing whom he picked up in the summer who asked to be taken to an address that had been destroyed. The driver asked if he was sure that was the address as it was just a vacant lot, to which the passenger replied by asking, "Am I dead?" Number 4, the Red Room Curse. The Red Room Curse is a Japanese urban legend that originated from an interactive Adobe Flash horror animation uploaded to GeoCities in the late 1990s. The legend tells the story of a pop-up ad that appears on the victim's computer screen, displaying a black text that reads, "Do you like?" on a red background. After trying to close the pop-up, it reappears with a new message that reads, "Do you like the Red Room?" before the screen just turns completely red, displaying a list of names of the Red Room victims. This is when the victim senses a mysterious presence behind them before losing consciousness and later being found dead in a room with blood-painted walls. The legend gained notoriety in 2004 when a 12-year-old schoolgirl was murdered by an 11-year-old classmate known as Girl A in Sasebo. It was reported that Girl A was a fan of the Red Room Curse animation and had the video bookmarked on her computer at the time of her death. And of course, this incident led to widespread discussion and fear for this curse. Then in 2016, a short film titled The Red Room Curse was released and was inspired by this urban legend, of course. The film brings the legend to life and is sure to give anyone who watched it a chilling experience. So if you guys kind of want to know what this Red Room is about, watch this film because it'll give you all the insights. Number 3, the Ushi Oni. The world of Japanese mythology is full of terrifying creatures, but none are quite as fearsome as the Ushi Oni, also known as the Ox Demon. This class of monster is found near bodies of water and is known for its savage and cruel nature. Although there are different types of Ushi Oni, they all share similar traits that make them unmistakable. Perhaps the most terrifying thing about these monsters is their insatiable appetite for human flesh. Then on top of that, they breathe toxic poison, making them even more deadly. The Ushi Oni is not to be trifled with as well, and many people who have encountered one have not lived to tell the tale. It is worth mentioning that the Ushi Oni is not always a solitary creature either. They are known to work together with other yokai or supernatural creatures such as the Nura Onna and the Iso Onna. These yokai use their charms to lure unsuspecting men towards the water, where the Ushi Oni is waiting to pounce and make a meal of its victims. The appearance of the Ushi Oni is quite unique and interesting as well. Much of them resemble an ox from the head up, but their body is a demonic horror. However, there are many variations on this theme, including one with a spider-like body, another one with a cat-like body, and even one with the body of a kimono-clad human. pretty terrifying. Number 2, the cursed Kleenex commercial. In 1986, Kleenex released a commercial in Japan that sparked a series of disturbing urban legends. The ad featured a woman in white and an ogre-looking child sitting on a pile of hay and enjoying Kleenex tissues, all while singing the song "It's a Fine Day" by Jane and Barden played in the background. Almost instantly after the commercial was aired, TV stations and Kleenex corporate allegedly began receiving complaints about the ad, with many people finding unsettling. Some claim that the entire film crew met untimely deaths in freak accidents following this, while others said that the child in the commercial had passed away immediately after filming this. There are also rumors that the actress Keiko Matsuzaka had either passed away or even been committed to a psychiatric hospital. Others claim that when the ad came on at night, the singer's voice in the commercial transformed from that of a young soprano to a raspy old woman's. And the ad was so unsettling to the public that Kleenex eventually pulled it off air and replaced it with a completely different one. At our number 1 spot, we have the Kaikoji Temple. This place has nothing really scary about it, except the fact that it has mummified bodies on display. Okay, maybe it's a bit scary. These mummified figures are known as the Shukumbutsu, also known as the living Buddha or Buddha mummies. These are in fact real people, and these are the bodies of the priests who belong to the Shingon sect of Japanese Buddhism. All of these mummies we see are priests who made the drastic decision in self-mummification. And I don't know what it is, but there's something about a body that being fully intact for hundreds of years that makes it so creepy. The process for the mummification would actually be very intense as well, and for the first 1,000 days, and it would go a little something like this. For the first 1,000 days, they would do extreme fasting and exercising. Then on the next 1,000 days, they would reduce their diet to a bare minimum in order to fit in this thing. The last 1,000 days would consist of entombment. Basically, many would bury themselves alive, essentially while in a deep state of meditation in order to reach enlightenment.
Number 10, the Men in Black encounter in Roswell, New Mexico. In 1947, a farmer reportedly witnessed a crashed UFO near the town of Roswell and found 3 humanoid figures dressed in black suits surrounding the craft. When he approached them, they simply vanished without a trace. The mysterious encounter in Roswell, New Mexico has become one of the most widely discussed and debated incidents among believers in UFOs. There have been various theories as to who these figures were, with some believing they were extraterrestrials, while others suggest they could have been representatives from a secret government agency or even time travelers. The witnesses described the men as being tall and intimidating, with bald heads and pale skin. They also wore dark sunglasses and gloves, making them appear even more mysterious. While some believe that these men in black may be part of an alien conspiracy to keep humans from discovering their presence on Earth, there's no concrete evidence to support this claim. What makes this particular case so intriguing is the fact that similar encounters with unknown individuals wearing black suits have been reported throughout history in different parts of the world. These stories involve strange events such as being taken for unexplained tests or receiving warnings about speaking publicly about UFOs or other paranormal activity. For example, witnesses have reported seeing a mysterious figure warning them not to speak out about what they saw or heard. As a result, many believe that these men in black are part of a global cover-up of alien activities on Earth. Number 9, the Lubbock Lights case. On August 25th, 1951, several citizens of Lubbock, Texas reported seeing up to 25 glowing objects flying in formation over the city skyline at around 8 p.m. All witnesses reported that 2 mysterious men in black appeared soon after and questioned each one about their experience before departing with no explanation. The Lubbock Lights case is one of the most famous Men in Black encounters of all time. All witnesses described the objects as being shaped like saucers or discs and emitting a bluish-greenish glow. Shortly after the sightings, 2 mysterious figures wearing black suits reportedly appeared and began questioning each witness about their experience before disappearing without a trace. The incident gained national attention when a newspaper reporter wrote an article detailing the accounts of those involved and speculating that they had seen an alien spacecraft. The story was picked up by the national news outlets and sparked much debate among the public. Since then, there has been much speculation over what these men in black may have been. Some believe that it was extraterrestrials. Some think they could be government agents sent to cover up evidence of UFOs or aliens. No definitive answer has ever been found as to their identity or purpose. Number 8. The Puerto Rican MIBs. A group of Puerto Rican teenagers were reportedly harassed by a pair of men in black in 1993. The Puerto Rican MIBs incident has remained a source of fascination and speculation for over 2 decades. In 1993, a group of teenagers from Puerto Rico reported that they were followed by 2 men in black for several days. The MIBs took photographs and asked questions about their experience seeing a UFO in the area. Witnesses described the MIBs as wearing dark suits and driving an old car without license plates. The incident gained widespread attention when it was reported in the media and sparked much speculation over who these mysterious figures may have been. Some believe that they could have been hoaxers or pranksters trying to scare people. In recent years, some researchers have attempted to uncover more information about these MIBs by attempting to locate witnesses who saw them during that time period. However, there has not been substantial evidence found which suggests what these strange figures may have wanted or who they were associated with. Despite the lack of solid evidence, the case of the Puerto Rican men in black still remains one of the most mysterious encounters with this phenomena ever reported. It is yet another example of how little we really know about the world around us and how vast our universe truly is. Number 7. The Battle of Brisbane. During the early 1950s, 2 Australian scientists reported being harassed by 4 men in black who demanded they turn over a computer they had built to analyze flying saucer data. When the MIBs threatened violence, the Australians fought back and scared them off. The Battle of Brisbane is one of the strangest men in black cases to ever occur. Witnesses described the MIBs as wearing black suits and having pale skin, dark facial hair, and no facial features. They reportedly communicated to the scientists in a strange language that sounded like an alien dialect. When the MIBs threatened violence, one of the scientists fought back with a hammer and scared them off. The incident has since become part of UFO folklore and remains a source of fascination for many. Although there is no concrete evidence that proves the Battle of Brisbane actually occurred, the case has caught the attention of UFO researchers and alien enthusiasts for over 60 years. Number 6. The Maury Island Incident. The Maury Island Incident is one of the most famous and mysterious men in black cases ever reported. In 1947, Harold Dahl was fishing near Puget Sound in Washington State when he noticed 6 unusual objects hovering above his boat. At first, he assumed they were aircraft from a nearby military base, but upon closer inspection, they seemed to be something else entirely. The objects then disappeared, and 2 men dressed entirely in black stepped out of the fog and approached Dahl's boat. The men warned him not to tell anyone about his sighting, or else there would be consequences. They reportedly spoke in a strange language that sounded like an alien dialect and had pale skin and no facial features just like the previous ones. After the incident, Dahl went public with his story, which led to widespread media coverage and speculation. Many people believe that the men in black were extraterrestrials sent to protect alien technology from being discovered, while others suggest they could have been hoaxers or pranksters. Number 5. The Flatwoods Monster. The Flatwoods Monster encounter is one of the most famous and perplexing men in black cases ever reported. In 1952, a group of West Virginians were playing in some nearby woods when they noticed a strange metallic figure accompanied by 2 men in black. Witnesses described the figures as wearing black suits. The MIBs then proceeded to threaten the people not to tell anyone what they had seen. Terrified, the people ran back to their homes and told their parents about their incident. In the days following, news spread quickly about the alleged sighting, and people from other towns began to flock to Flatwoods in search of answers. Local law enforcement conducted an investigation into what had happened, but weren't able to find any evidence of extraterrestrial activity. Since then, researchers have speculated as to who these mysterious figures may have been. Some believe it was just some random people trying to scare people away from investigating further. Number 4. The Falcon Lake Incident. The Falcon Lake Incident is one of the most notorious Men in Black cases in recent history. In 1967, Canadian resident Stefan Michalak was looking for quartz in a remote area near Falcon Lake when he encountered 2 men in black. Michalak claims that he approached the MIBs to ask what they were doing at the lake but received no response. He then noticed a large craft hovering above him which had 2 exhaust pipes on its underside before it suddenly vanished. After this incident, Michalak reported suffering from radiation poisoning, nausea, and burns on his chest, which may have been caused by contact with an alien energy source. In the days following his encounter, Michalak also found strange footprints left behind by the MIBs, as well as metallic debris which seemed to be part of some sort of advanced technology or machinery. Number 3. The Allagash Abduction. In 1976, 4 college students from Maine were out camping near Allagash Waterway when they noticed a strange light in the night sky. Initially believed to be an airplane, the group soon realized that what they were witnessing was something far more mysterious as the light began to move around erratically before eventually disappearing. A few minutes later, the group heard a loud humming sound coming from above and saw two bright lights in the sky. This time they knew it wasn't an airplane. The next thing they remembered was waking up hours later with no recollection of what had happened during those hours. The four men reported that their abductors had gray skin with large eyes and bald heads and communicated telepathically with them during their experience. They were taken aboard a UFO where various medical tests were performed on them before being released back to their campsite. Afterwards, the men encountered two men in black who warned them not to tell anyone about their experience or else face serious consequences. Number 2, the Kecksburg incident. The Kecksburg incident is one of the most mysterious and controversial events in modern history. On December 9, 1965, an object resembling a large bell was seen crashing in Pennsylvania's woods near the town of Kecksburg. Witnesses reported seeing several military vehicles racing to the scene, as well as some mysterious figures dressed entirely in black. The strange object was eventually retrieved by the military, but no explanation was given as to what it could have been. Some witnesses described it as being a large metallic acorn-shaped object with an inscribed symbol on one side resembling the letter O, or U, wrapped around a diamond shape. Others claim to have heard high-pitched sounds coming from it before it was taken by the military. When local residents asked about the incident, they were told that nothing out of the ordinary had happened and that it must have been a weather balloon or a meteorite. However, multiple eyewitness accounts suggest that this is unlikely and that something else may have taken place that day in Kecksburg. Speculation suggests that what crashed near Kecksburg could have been an alien spacecraft or even some sort of advanced secret government project. Number 1, the Toronto encounter. The Toronto encounter is one of the most bizarre and perplexing UFO encounters in recent history. On August 3, 1989, 3 Canadian ufologists, John Venter, Paul Shishis, and Don Ledger, were out on a boat near Lake Ontario when they noticed an abnormally large craft hovering in the night sky above them. It was described as being several hundred feet long, flat black in color, and had no visible windows or doors. The men were immediately overcome with fear, but managed to take some photographs before the craft quickly shot off into the distance. Afterward, they returned to shore only to find 5 mysterious figures dressed entirely in black waiting for them along the beach. They warned them not to tell anything about what they had seen, and this incident has been thoroughly investigated by various researchers and scientists over the years, but still remains unsolved due to the lack of evidence.
At a number 10 spot, we have the robot surgery. The world of surgery has been revolutionized with the advent of robot-assisted procedures, offering a safer and more precise way to get your insides fixed. But is it really as safe as it seems? A recent study conducted by MIT, Rush University Medical Center, and the University of Illinois found that there has been 144 deaths, 1,391 injuries, and 8,061 device malfunctions reported to the US Food and Drug Administration between 2000 and 2013. With this, there was over 1.7 million robot-assisted surgeries carried out in this time frame, and this may sound alarming, but the truth is little more nuanced. The most dangerous types of surgeries were found to be cardiothoracic and head and neck procedures, which accounted for 6.4% and 19.7% of adverse results respectively. These complex procedures were found to have a higher injury and death rates due to a lack of expertise and experience using robotic devices in these fields. Conversely, gynecology and urology operations, which are performed more frequently with robotics, had a much lower rate of adverse results at 1.4% and 1.9% respectively. One of the major issues found in the study was that the pieces of the robot occasionally fell off into the patient during surgery, leading to at least 1 death and 119 injuries. The video systems on the surgeon's console also malfunctioned during 18 surgeries, causing injury. Meanwhile, 2 deaths and 52 injuries were caused when the robotic surgeon spontaneously powered down or made an incorrect movement. It's important to note that the vast majority of deaths and injuries were simply listed as a malfunction, and the reports on the exact causes were incomplete. However, the study concludes that despite the increase in the number of robot-assisted surgeries, the chance of an accident happening has remained relatively constant, indicating that there are still fundamental problems that still need to be fixed. But in my opinion, I'd like to stick to a human surgeon. Thank you. At a number 9 spot, we have out-of-control robot cannon. In the world of advanced military weapons, robots are taking center stage. Many of these weapons are designed to pick targets, aim, and wait for a human to pull the trigger. However, there have been incidents when these machines have started firing on their own without any human intervention. The South African National Defense Force is investigating whether a software glitch led to a malfunction of an anti-aircraft cannon during a shooting exercise, resulting in the deaths of 9 soldiers and injuring 14 others. The Oerlikon GDF-005 is a highly advanced weapon that uses passive and active radar, laser target designators, and rangefinders to lock onto high-speed aircraft, helicopters, unmanned aerial vehicles, and cruise missiles. According to electronics engineer and defense company CEO Richard Young, the incident may have not been purely mechanical. During shooting trials, he claims to have seen a gun go out of control and knock down the steel poles used to keep it in place. Despite efforts by the brave unnamed officer to stop the wildly swinging gun, it continued to spray hundreds of high explosive shells, leading to the loss of many lives. While the exact cause of the malfunction is still being investigated, it still raises serious questions about the reliability and safety of those advanced weapons, and if it might be that the machine has a mind of its own. Number 8. Chess robot breaks a finger. During the Moscow Chess Open competition on July 19th, a chess-playing robot caused a 7-year-old chess prodigy Christopher to fracture one of his fingers. Christopher is one of the top young chess players in Moscow, a nation that has definitely taken pride in the game and made it a national obsession. The incident took place when the robot captured one of Christopher's pieces, and the young boy attempted a quick move without waiting for the robot to complete its task. Videos of the incident show the robot grabbing Christopher's finger, with 4 adults later rushing to help the boy. Sergei Smagin, vice president of the Russian Chess Federation, said that the child had violated safety rules and didn't realize he first had to wait for the robot to complete its move. Meanwhile, Moscow Chess Federation president Sergei Lazarev had a different account, saying the child had made a move, and after that, we need to give time for the robot to answer. But the boy hurried and the robot grabbed him. The incident raises serious questions about the safety of such machines and their potential to cause harm. According to one 2015 study, at least one person is killed each year by an industrial robot in the US alone. In light of this incident, the suppliers of the chess-playing robots will have to reevaluate their machine safety protocols and design. Despite the incident, Christopher was able to finish the rest of the tournament with a cast on his finger. Sergei Karjakin believes that the incident was due to a software error or something similar. Number 7. Classified AI robot attack. Back in February 2017, a video was making rounds on the internet claiming that at a top robotics company in Japan, 4 robots being developed for military applications went rogue and killed 29 humans in a lab by shooting metal bullets. The video was made by a journalist and former Miss Idaho named Linda Moulton Howie, who has a popular YouTube channel dedicated to conspiracy theories. The clip was based on a phone interview she conducted with someone from the CIA who told her this shocking story. While Linda's claims seem far-fetched and there is no evidence to support them, the possibility of killer robots sparking a war is not entirely out of the realm of possibility. Japanese military AI programs have seen rapid development in recent years as a way to counter the declining population of young soldiers. On the other hand, tech luminaries such as Elon Musk have warned about the dangers of AI, calling it the scariest problem for humanity. While Linda's claims are not verified, the threat of AI being used as a weapon is very real, and it's important for us to consider the future we want for our world. The dangers of killer robots spark a war is not far-fetched, and it's crucial that we establish meaningful human control over AI before it's too late. Number 6. Rogue Volkswagen robot. The death of a 22-year-old technician at a Volkswagen plant in Germany due to an accident with a robot is being considered as a landmark event in the world of industrial automation. The technician was reportedly installing a computer-operated production line for electronic motors, when all of a sudden the robotic arm, which was supposed to lift the machine parts, ended up crushing him against a large metal plate, resulting in severe injuries to his chest. The man was resuscitated at the scene, but unfortunately he passed away later in the hospital. While the death has been deemed as the first in Europe caused by an industrial robot, experts were quick to dispel any ideas of a tragedy as a darker side of science fiction coming to life. Instead, they have stated that human error, not a malfunction on part of the robot, was the root cause of the accident. The robot involved in the incident was owned by the contractors who were working at the Volkswagen plant, where 15,000 people are employed in the assembly of gearboxes and other vehicle parts. Despite being one of the most automated car makers in the world, Volkswagen has stated that the incident was a result of human error and not a malfunction with the robot. But do we really believe that? In the hub of our list, we have the 2016 High-Tech Fair. The High-Tech Fair in 2016 in Xinjiang, China was disrupted when a robot named Zhao Peng went rogue and caused injuries to his visitors. The robot, designed for educational use and interaction with children, lost control and rammed a neighboring booth at high speeds, causing glass to shatter and injuring people with splinters. The victims were taken to hospital for treatment after that. However, the event organizers claimed that the incident was due to human error and not a malfunction in the robot's AI. EF Robot, the company behind Xiaopeng, issued a statement clarifying that the robot's AI is safe and that it has already sold over 3,000 units. But if it sold 3,000 units and it's acting like this, how safe can it really be? They also pledged to improve safety standards to prevent similar incidents from happening in the future. Despite the chaos, it lasted only 10 seconds and online media has maybe exaggerated some of the injuries that happened here. Number 4, police robots. In a thrilling turn of events, the San Francisco Board of Supervisors recently voted to pass a policy that would allow their police officers to use ground-based robots to administer deadly force in certain circumstances. This move sparked heated debates and divided opinions, with some supervisors hailing it as a necessary measure to protect lives in the light of recent mass shootings, while others feared it would sow distrust and be a dangerous precedent for other cities. The San Francisco Police Department does not currently possess armed robots, but the policy would pertain to their fleet of unmanned remotely piloted robots used for reconnaissance, bomb disposal, and rescue operations. While opponents call the policy dehumanizing and militaristic, law enforcement experts say it could be a useful tool in extreme circumstances, like the one that took place in Dallas in 2016 when a robot was used to kill a shooter. However, after doing more research on this, I found that the board took back these ideas and said it wasn't a good idea at all. Number 3, Libya weaponized drone. In 2018, the United Nations called for a ban on killer robots, but their plea was dismissed. A recent report by the UN Security Council's panel of experts in Libya revealed that an autonomous weaponized drone attacked a human target without human intervention in 2020. The drone in question was Kargu 2, a quadcopter made by the Turkish military technology company STM that was an inbuilt with an explosive charge and had the capability of autonomous attacks. The drones were running on an autonomous mode which did not require human moderation and made the decision to attack independently, which only indicated that the drone autonomously attacked humans and killed them. Human Rights Watch and a coalition of 161 non-governmental organizations have been advocating for a complete ban on these weapons since 2013. The report, titled "Stopping Killer Robots: Country Positions on Banning Fully Autonomous Weapons and Retaining Human Control," reveals that more and more countries are recognizing the need to prevent these killer robots or lethal autonomous weapon systems. The organization argued that the weapon systems that select and engage targets without meaningful human control are unacceptable and must be prevented. Number 2, robot turned psycho killer. In a shocking and unfortunate event, a man was killed by a robot at a car parts factory in India on August 2015. Ramji Lal, a 24-year-old worker, was adjusting a metal sheet being welded by the machine when he was tragically killed by one of its arms. The incident happened in a factory owned by SKH Metals in Manesar, where Lal had been working for around 18 months. According to one of his colleagues, the robot was pre-programmed to weld metal sheets, and it is believed that a dislodged sheet caused Lal to reach from behind the machine to adjust it, which eventually led to the fatal incident. The company management and the contractor have been booked for charges of causing death due to negligence, and the Maruti Udyog Kamgar Union has demanded a full inquiry into Lal's death and increased safety measures for workers dealing with robots. Number 1, a trader robot. In 2014, an industrial robot at Kawasaki Heavy Industries in Japan caused the death of a worker who was attempting to repair it. The worker Kenji Urata had entered a prohibited area around the robot to repair it, but ended up being trapped by the working arm of the robot and pinned against the machine that cut gears. The factory officials revealed that a wire mesh fence around the robot would have cut off its power supply if unhooked, but Urata had jumped over the fence instead. He set the machines on manual control, but then accidentally brushed against the on switch and the claw of the robot to push against the machine tooling device, with other workers unable to intervene. The Labor Standards Bureau of Hyogo Prefecture attributed the accident to the workers' lack of knowledge towards the robots and neglect of regulations surrounding the new machines. The company had removed the robot from the line and erected a man-high fence around the 2 other robots in the plant. The disclosure of the accident has raised concerns among employees in the Japan industry, which now has 75,000 robots of varying sophistication installed and is introducing more robots at a rate of 20,000 per year. This figure far exceeds the number of robots in use in all other countries. While trade unions in Japan have received robots with mixed emotions, with relief that they are freeing workers from tedious, dirty jobs, they also fear that this may eventually replace the entire human workforce. Would you rather have a workforce full of robots or no? Let me know in the comments below.